Welcome back, folks. This is MACT at MACT's Garage in the oil testing series, and today we have a Oreilly virgin and two used samples that we're going to cover. So not only did we test the virgin sample, but now we have two oil reports based on real-world use, and we're going to cover those used reports and compare it to the virgin sample to see where we're at with this oil. And is it a good oil for the long haul, or is there issues? We don't know. We're going to go ahead and read over these oil reports and see where we're at. But first, back to the basics. Let's do a little bit of review on the Oreilly 5W20 synthetic and see where we're at. Now, we first did this oil report on the 27th of February 2018, and we got the report on the Oreilly 5W20. Let's see, the virgin sample of it, basically viscosity was correct as far as the report goes. Some traces of some metals that were in there, such as titanium things, and a little bit of iron was in the original testing, but overall they said it was a good oil and it'll work for the needs. Now, I did also do the testing for the 2011 Ford Edge, and this is the used sample. I took this sample that I had. This is the same sample that I took, and I added, more quarts. In other words, I took a little sample out of 1 quart, but I added 5 more with that quart, and we did a run on it on my 2011 Ford Edge. And as you can see, we have that documented there. It's a Oreilly 520. So one of the quarts that sampled was in this sample that we're doing for the used oil report. And this is on the 20th of December of 2018 when this sample was taken. Now, as far as that goes, we had 204 hours highway, mostly highway, with some idle that was in there because, quite frankly, I have to wait sometimes, so I let the engine idle. But for the most part, this is all highway use. And basically, they said that's another good report for my Edge, mostly because it's got 260,000 miles on it, and they see nothing in it that was indicating any type of wear. Got some high silicon in there, I guess they said, at 13 parts per million, but nothing to really work about. And insolubles was standing at a rock solid 0.2%, which is across the board for all my oil samples for the most part. But there was fuel in there, and the fuel was definitely causing it to degrade, because fuel washes out your oil. And ultimately, my TBN was getting down there. Okay, it was a 1.9 TBN. And I don't know what it started out exactly, but we'll cover that as we go through the report. But remember that number, 1.9. Now, as far as this goes, we have a 14 Edge 3.5 Duratec that we did some oil testing on, and it too also ran the Oreilly synthetic 5W20 and had 176 hours on the oil, which culminated into about a little over 6,000 miles. And basically, it says the report looks good, the wear metals are in good shape, universal averages, and he too had a little bit of fuel in his, but he didn't do a TBN on it, okay? But we're going to base it off of my TBN on the virgin sample and everything that we got from the Petroleum Quality Institute of America, and we'll base it off of that. But basically, his engine's running good too, and does not have any problems with it. Now, going in there, like I said, the report here that's highlighted on the left is the 176 hours city combo, and then my 204 hours highway driving, and then the virgin sample is on the right side. So we're going to carry on and see what these indications were in the testing so we can follow along with this. But our aluminum for the city highway was 6. The highway for me was 4, and the universal average is 0, and the Oreilly, of course, virgin sample was 0. Chromium, city highway, that one came out to 0, and across the board it was 0 for all testing. Iron, here we go, separating the big boys. Anyway, we have an engine that has 34,000 miles on it for the city highway. He came in at a 10 for the iron, and then my Edge with 261,000 miles on it came in at a 10 also. with the virgin sample with just 1, and the universal averages for virgin samples or used samples rather, is 11. So both edges are under the universal used sample testing. Copper, hey, the city highway edge with 34,000 miles on it came in at 25 parts per million, which is a tad over the used analysis of 19. But my edge, came in at 3 parts per million for the copper, so she's running sweet and no problems. The virgin sample, of course, had 0. Lead, there was 0 across the board as far as any of the samples for lead, with a universal average of used samples being just 1. Tin, we had 0 across the board for both samples and the virgin sample, and the universal averages there again are 0. Molybdenum, that's right, that's a tongue twister to say. We just call it Molly B. And Molly B for the testing here was 65 parts per million for the 2014 edge with 176 hours on it. And then mine came in at 77. Now, the virgin sample had 66,000. I am going to say that this is most likely, as far as the Molly, a carryover from my Pennzoil Ultra Platinum run that was just before this when I put the Oreilly in. So there may be some leaching of product into my sampling because it's not pure Oreilly. So there's going to be a couple other instances of this happening. Again, nickel. Nickel was 0 across the board and the universal average for used oil. And manganese. Manganese was 5 in the 176-hour edge, and it was just 1 in my 204-hour edge, with 0 in the virgin sample, with a universal used average of 4. And again, since there was none in there, that's going to say that this manganese is leaching out of the engine system into the oil as it is being operated. Silver, there is 0 parts per million silver across the board, including used samples. Titanium, well, the virgin sample comes in at 33 parts per million for titanium, and both edges came in at a different rate below that. So the 176-hour 14 edge came in at 26 parts per million, and my Lu came in at 204 hours with 31 parts per million, which is just slightly below the original virgin sample of 33. So overall, that we can say that yeah, that is an additive that does get used up over time. Now, potassium, the virgin sample had 0, but we both ended up with 2 in our samples for the potassium. So there's probably something that correlates as far as the engine operation that gives you that potassium also. Boron. Now here's the mice and the men. The virgin sample started out with 210 parts per million, and both the city highway and my edge, all highway, came in lower. City highway came in at 54 parts per million, and my edge came in at 57. So that tells me that boron is a usable, expandable, or expendable additive within the operation of the engine. So it does get ate up and used up as you are running your oil. Silicon, we both of course have some silicon in there. The 176-hour Ford Edge came in at 22 parts per million. My Edge with the 204 hours came in at 13 parts per million, with the virgin sample having just 6 and the universal used sampling rate of 15. So that tells us that there is some silicon from seals, and I'm going to say his is higher, mostly because it's a lot newer engine. Those seals are still leaching out some silicon, whereas mine's got 261,000 miles on it, and it doesn't have near as much leaching going on as far as the silicon. Sodium. Now the sodium is a telltale all, and again, I think this is a carryover from some of the sampling from the Pennzoil Ultra Platinum I had in there, but the 176-hour edge came in at 5, whereas my 204-hour edge came in at 9, and the universal average was 55, with the virgin sample at just 1. So we're both well under the universal average for used oil samples. Calcium. Well, the original additive calcium in the Oreilly was 1,186 parts per million. Mine came in at 204 hours at 1473. Now, this is up. Again, I contribute this to the Pennzoil Ultra Platinum with some leaching going on. In other words, there's some calcium remaining in the engine when I did the oil change, so thus a higher amount. So if we look at it, since this oil sample was using Oreilly, I think a couple more times before that, the same oil, we can see that the calcium was degraded down to 1,058 from the 1186. So the calcium does get consumed as the engine operates, and you do have a loss of it. Again, the universal average for calcium in all used samples was 1,962. So the Oreilly is a little bit below par as far as the calcium additives for used oils. Magnesium. Now, the virgin sample started out with 846 parts per million of the magnesium, and my edge at 204 hours managed to use some of that up, and we were rated at 775 with the 176 hour 2014 edge at 761. So you can see that we're using the magnesium up as we're operating the engine, so that's again another additive that is being ate up as the engine performs and uses the oil. Phosphorus. Again, we have 758 for the virgin sample we started out with, and mine at 204,000 or 204 hours had 772. Again, some leaching, I guess, from the Pennzoil Ultra Platinum that was in there previously, so I'm a little higher than what the Oreilly had. But if we look at the 176 hour edge for the 2014, it was down to 669, which it had ate up not about 90 or so parts per million of the phosphorus. So, you know, there is some usage there. Universal average for used oil samples, though, is 687. Zinc. Zinc is the go-to for a lot of oils, and they add it in there. And as we can see, the virgin sample of the Oreilly started out at 834, and then my edge, the 204,000 one, comes up at, or 204 hour running, came in at 850, which again is higher, and again is the leaching. But as we look at it, the 176 hour edge came in at 747. So again, we can say that the zinc was getting used up as the oil was being used and run through the engine. The universal averages, of course, are 783 for used sampling. And there is no barium across the board in any one of the oils, with the universal average being just 2 parts per million. Now we look at the SUS viscosity at 210 degrees Fahrenheit, and the Oreilly for the edge with 176 hours was 51.7, and then the Oreilly for my edge at 204 hours was 53.4, with the virgin sample starting out at 52.1. So we have some variations of usage here as far as what the oil is doing, but anything between 46 and 57 is considered good. So there's some variances on city highway driving we're probably going to be seeing, and that all plays a key to the very end of what I'm going to cover. The CST viscosity at 100 degrees Celsius, the Oreilly at 176 hours, city highway combo came in at 7.78. The all-highway 204 hour one came in at 8.30, with the virgin sample starting out at 7.92. So they're both pretty close, because anything between 6 and 9.7 is considered good. Now here's the point where we have the virgin Oreilly came in at 435 with the virgin sample, and both the forward edges were at 385, and that is because if we go down, we had a trace of fuel in the oil, and that fuel is going to cause you to have a lower flash point, which affected it. Now it's winter time, we're idling the engines more, and fuel gets in there because of idle, and you're going to have traces of fuel that cause it to go down. Of course, there's no antifreeze indicated in either one of the samples of the used samples. There is also no water indicated in any one of the samples at all. insolubles for both engines with their filters was at 0.2. So that means both of us have pretty good filters in there and are keeping our engine oil clean. Now the total base number, or TBN, the Oreilly, he did no testing for a TBN, so we do not know where we're at with the TBN. But according to the virgin sampling that is done on the Petroleum Quality Institute of America, the Oreilly is rated at a 9.17, and that is it's pretty good. But if you look at it, I'm a 1.9. Now I will say I started doing TBN testing a little while back, but not long enough to establish a trend. But I will tell you that this is the second lowest TBN on a used sample for 204 hours I have ever gotten out of any oil so far that I've been testing on used samples. So, you know, whether or not that TBN stands up to truth, because the TBN testing that we're talking about here from the PQIOA is dated 2016. So could things change in 2 years? Yeah, the formulations do change. But that setting aside, we're going to cover what's going on with this and see how we're doing. Now, one thing that we need to know, that the Petroleum Quality Institute of America said it was a 9.17 in their testing results for 2016. Now, 204 hours of use all highway with some idle time was experienced by this Oreilly in my engine. The total loss of the TBN during use was a 7.26. Now, that is a pretty good deal that we want to pay attention to. Okay, this loss of 7.26 can be an issue because it degraded the TBN at a rate of 0.356 per 10 hours of engine operation. That's right, for every 10 hours, you're losing 0.356 of your TBN, and that, you know, that could end up telling us how long this oil is going to last. So the Oreilly 5W20 synthetic was degraded and was used at the following intervals, and here it is: 3,000 miles all city in high idle, or 100 hours use. Now this is what I'm saying. If you're going to be using the Oreilly and all you're going to do is high idle and just drop putzing around city, then I'm recommending a 3,000 mile mark change out on this oil based on the degradation of the TBN, because we all know city driving is harder on the oil than all highway. The other thing is, if you do a combination driving on this oil, I would recommend about 6,000 miles or 175 hours of use. Okay? So you want to make sure that you do pay attention. Set your timer, if you do have it on your Ford Edge or any other vehicle you have, and keep track of the hours rather than the miles, because that's your most accurate. And last but not least, if you do drive your vehicle, say 10,000 miles or more, and it's all highway, change it out about 200 hours of use, because with a TBN of 1.9, at 200 hours, you have pretty much exhausted this oil, and it needs to be changed because there's really nothing left in it for you to be driving. So this is a real world thing. 2 real world tests against the Oreilly here as far as our engines, and we're trying to make sure we do it. Now, I do want to note some cautions for you. If in doubt, follow your owner's manual, and if in real doubt, follow your owner's manual severe service guidelines for fluid changes. This is not a controlled scientific testing, but merely real-world testing. The results are from anybody that happen to be using it, which is me and another person, and your results may vary from your experiences, such as my usage of my vehicle. So you have to pay attention to how you drive it, but these are the results that I had in my testing, and I think it serves a good purpose to inform you all. If you're going to choose Oreilly motor oil, the 520 synthetic, to use, then you have a good rule of thumb here of what to do and how to change your oil out. One thing I do want you all to do is, of course, join up on MACT Garage on YouTube, also the Facebook group. Join there, and if you have any questions, because there will be no comments available on the YouTube channel. If you want to talk about oil, go to MACT Garage on Facebook, and then you can join, and we can talk all day long about oil if you want to. But another thing I need you to know is that this group is not funded by anything. It is not a YouTube monetized channel. So if you want to go to MACT Garage and hit that donate button and help me out in oil testing and help pay for it, that would be fantastic. If not, hey, you know, the information's here for you anyway. But Band of One's going to play some great music at the end of this. I might have a little bonus footage at the end. I don't know. It depends what I want to do. But Mercy Girl's going to toss a couple one-liners at you. And I'm having a great day because both my feet hit the floor. So I want you to have a great day too.
Thank you for watching MACT's videos, and remember to like and subscribe. This is a Mercy Girl production.